Today we're going to talk about INTEA legends or things that appeared in our corporate mythology over years. Some of them are so old that we can even doubt that they ever happened.
Yes.
And today we're gonna share those. So it's gonna be a bit of a different format, but I think still very topical in a way that there will be some very clear lessons learned for the L&D function.
Right, and I was researching what's the difference between myths and legends, because you say corporate mythology, but then you say INTEA legends, and it turns out that myths are essentially completely made up, and legends at least they claim, to be rooted in reality. So it's corporate mythology, but we will be talking mostly about legends.
Yeah.
All of them have some roots in reality, although no one can attest to them being what they are, except for us, and we won't tell. All right, so in order to give our upcoming hour structure, I actually dug around, and although mythology is being studied by a million different sciences, and none of those sciences are in any way familiar to me, so I had to look for a structure, and it turns out that there are three types of mythology, or all myths and legends. They can be structured into three different categories. The first one is etiological. It deals with, and that's, by the way, the second movie in this presentation already. Don't forget, you type them in chat. So etiological etiological myths deal with the creation of the world, right? Something that came to be. It doesn't have to be even the world. If there is a legend of how a kangaroo got its sack or a bag, I don't know what's the name, then it's also etiology, how something came to be. And we'll talk about how some things about INTEA came to be, or INTEA itself. Then there are psychological myths. They sort of explain how we live our life. They provide some wisdom. They show examples of courage, as this one in the illustration, for example, or
Talk about relationship,
jealousy, popular motive, dealing with defeat, and anything that we go through our lives. And then the final category is the chthonic. The chthonic myths or chthonic mythology deals with the afterlife, right? Every human being knows they will die. We do fear our death. We do realize that it will come. We are not guided by instinct. We have developed certain ways of dealing with that fear, and all tales about afterlife. And in this case, it's Valhalla. It's actually the name of the movie, Valhalla. I was just Googling, like, no one knows that movie, ignore it.
Yeah.
But the name of the movie is Valhalla. It's the place where Vikings go to after death to have the eternal feast with Odin himself. Right. So let's start with some of the creation myths. Right. By the way, Ravis has not seen this presentation in full, or has very little idea what this deals with. Do you venture a guess?
Me.
Yes.
So this is when I think we started, and when everybody was telling us that, buying e-learning from somebody who's not in our business, in our company, a very bad idea. We are so special, so specific.
See, you've forgotten a crucial part. The INTEA was started at the end of 2008 and officially incorporated in the beginning of 2009, almost exactly 12 years ago. And that was the time of the financial crisis, right? If you remember that time, if you were in learning and development,
if you're old enough to remember.
If you're, I shaved my beard for today's presentation. Maybe shouldn't. So if you remember, that was the financial crisis, and all the budgets, especially in learning, were cut. As you know, first thing that happens in a crisis, budgets get cut. The first type of budget to get cut is somehow the training budget.
Just
type yes in
paper.
chat if you agree. So we were calling companies and they were saying that, yeah, sure, learning, no, don't have time or budget. And they would just literally hang up on us. And that was rather frustrating for a company looking for its first client. And we understood that we can't really approach them with sales approach, and they would not talk to us because they didn't see any point. So we came up with a different idea, right? So we did what?
Research.
Research, yeah, the research with the capital R, because that's actually the research probably.
Yeah.
I don't think INTEA has done a lot of researches ever since, but that one was inaugural, I would say. And the idea was simple. We would call a company and say, we're not selling anything. Please don't knock. Yeah. We don't sell anything. We're doing research on how you use e-learning and how much of e-learning you use in your company. How do you train people? What part of that is online and offline and so on? And we'll do research. And people, since again, they don't have budget, they're not doing much at that point as well. And they're like, yeah, sure, send your questions. And we would say, no, we would not send you questions. This is an expert interview. And we need to come and interview, like face-to-face. Again, another legend, people used to meet face-to-face. And we would approach them and we would don our best shirts, still the same shirt.
You still don't have one.
Yeah, I still don't. Yeah, I used to have a shirt. And we would meet and we would shake hands and drink coffees and make friends with all those people in the industry that we never had a chance to talk to, and we would never be able to approach if we were trying to sell something to them. But research, everyone says, okay, well, I'm glad to help. Of course, it also helped that we promised to share that research results, and everyone wants to compare themselves to others, of course. Before INTEA, actually, in the Baltics, there was very little exchange, I think, of e-learning information as such, right? You work in one bank, you don't know what's happening in another bank. You don't run into them too often. There are no conferences, there are no companies like INTEA walking around and telling people stuff. So that seemed like a very valuable proposition, and everyone agreed. And we interviewed some 15 companies or so. We focused on the financial sector for the most part, right, to make it some credibility. And also we assumed that even in crisis, banks should still have some money left. And
who else?
Exactly. Like, where did it all go, right?
Yeah.
So we approached all the banks and some other financial companies. We interviewed them. We made friends. We introduced ourselves. And I think even before we published that research, we actually got an invitation from our first client to participate in a contest, to submit a proposal for creation of an e-course for them. And this is how our first project basically came to be, like first real project that we were able to sell by not doing any sales, right?
Right.
So I think the takeaway from here is that for the learning and development here is that sometimes it's difficult to approach certain audiences. It could be the top management who say, yeah, I don't have time for courses or training or learning. Or these could be people who you do not manage directly. These could be your contractors or people who work in your franchise organization or some type of partners or even clients maybe, right? And you need to teach them something like IT skills, something like IT security skills, something like counteracting the social engineering type of hacks, something like personal data protection, a lot of maybe safety even, right?
I mean, even if you would be, if you have to teach them about their eating habits, I mean, you can do a survey, right? I mean, when I get those surveys sometimes, and the question is like, how often do you eat kale to keep your skin healthy? There is a learning fact in there, right? So to keep it healthy, I have to eat kale, right? Of course, I'm making it up now, but that's the idea, yeah.
No, kale is good for it. Right, so how often do you eat kale to keep your skin nice and beautiful? Well, that's an absolutely excellent example. Learning fact in there, and then also by doing the answers, the distractors, you can actually set certain benchmark. Never, once a day, 3 times a day, 4 times a day. It's different from never, once a year, twice a year, three times a year, right? You already set a certain benchmark for
how it should happen.
How it should happen, right? Exactly. So you can like one question, two learning facts, basically. If you do a survey like that, you can actually get to people to at least make them aware of certain things, make them think about the potential benefits of knowing more about that, and then you can actually approach them with learning. So if you're facing a tough crowd, don't throw learning at them. Maybe do a survey. People are more likely to respond to surveys sometimes, and never hurts.
Yeah, because surveys, I think a big advantage of surveys, there is a promise I will learn something about myself.
Right.
And then the other aspect is surveys are interactive. As compared to some types of learning.
Reading.
Yeah, reading, survey just pushes you to do stuff and to engage and to concentrate on the topic.
And also, when I do surveys, I often feel like I'm helping people.
Yeah, of course.
I'm like, someone asked me to provide some information. Well, why don't I spare like 5 minutes and help someone with their bachelor thesis or something?
Yeah, and then when he gets those bachelor thesis surveys, then Sergey comes back to me saying, come on, how can you do a research like that? What kind of question is it, right?
Yeah. It kind of just makes me feel better about myself. All right, so next thing, competition, right? Let's talk about competition, how we won our first project. It did not, if you watch the movie, if you know the movie, type it in chat. Nobody's typing in chat. Should we stop? Let's stop.
Yeah, let's close this down.
All right, so how we got our first project. So we got that invitation, and we had like 0 projects under our belt, and we didn't know even how many competitors there were or what price we should offer and so on. But luckily, they asked us not for references, but actually for a demo. They asked us to build a demo project, and what they gave us, it was a bank. They gave us a sheet of paper, a page from their internal regulations which described how people should dress in a bank. And it looked exactly like that. I formatted it specifically to remind us of what it looked like. It had some general part in the beginning to explain how we behave in a bank and how we dress in a bank and so on. And then it had 2 separate parts for people in the front office, right? People who have to wear certain color scarves. We won't tell you the color, would be too easy.
To guess a bank. Name tag, I think.
Yeah, which side the name tag should go on, what type of shoes you can and cannot wear, and so on. And then the other part was for back office people that worked in the headquarters who have certain other requirements, but certainly they don't need to wear special colors, but they still can and cannot wear, I think it was stupid, like open heel shoes for women.
Yeah, it was quite conservative those days. I mean, no jeans. Even Fridays were casual Friday, but no jeans allowed at any time, right?
Right. So it's
this is how old we are.
A little bit Iranian kind of approach there, but I know for a fact that bank has changed a lot since.
Absolutely.
But and in the end there were some more provisions that applied to everyone. Things like where you put your security card and what should be displayed at all times and so on. So it had those 2 parts, which we thought was important. And what we did was essentially this. And at slide 1, you had to choose what you are, whether you are the frontline employee, and then you would see slides 1, 2, 3, and then 10, 11, 12, 13, and then some end slides. And if you said you were back office employee, you would see slides 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, which only deal with you. So we actually made it tailor-made to your role, so you don't see things that are not relevant to you and only see things that are relevant to you, which is such a simple idea, absolutely simple idea. By the way, this is not a real screenshot, it's something from Articulate, I think, but it was very much like this, where you would say what is your role, and then depending on your role, you will see parts of content that are relevant to you and not see parts that are not relevant to you. How simple is that? Out of 7 competitors that, as we later found out, that were participating in that contest, how many out of 7 competitors to INTEA you think did that adaptive approach? Type a number in the chat.
Yeah, from 0 to 7.
From 0 to 7, right?
Yeah, we have our chat absolutely silent. Oh, we've got it. Oh, Oksana is with us.
1. Okay.
1.
Hi, Oksana.
3.
Okay. Out of 7 competitors, how many decided that this adaptive approach, which is super simple, is all right for us?
2.
Okay. People are on the pessimistic side, more or less. Anyone else? Just give us one more number.
Yeah, so that we...
We'll give you last chance. None of those are true, by the way.
5.
5. Excellent. Wrong. 0. No one did that. Only us in our year 0 of our existence basically did that. That is amazing, but somehow it worked. And I think that the takeaway in here is that adaptive learning just works. It gets results, whether you want the project or you want people to learn something. And it's not hard to do, right? When you say adaptive, when you think I have to tailor-make my content to this and that, it just means sometimes that you have to hide certain slides from some people and show other slides to other people, and you don't have to even automate this. Just ask them, like, what are you? Do you know a lot, or you don't know a lot? Do you work
here or there?
Here or there? What's your job role and so on?
No, what bothers you, this or that?
Yeah.
I mean, why not a question?
Yeah.
Like
why are you taking this time management course? Is this because you don't have time for yourself, or you don't have time to finish all the work that you do? We might be able to adapt something, for you, and make this course a little bit more personal and more relevant, right?
Right.
Sometimes you can ask people to type stuff in chat, and they won't. But life is life.
Yeah, but the word of caution here, because in one of our breakfasts I was explaining when not to use the adaptive approach, and this is when you want to tailor it to things like people who prefer visual content or audio content, so you rather think about your audience than some features of that audience, like audios, visuals, or whatever else you can make up, like female, male, or whatever.
Like
this is not helpful.
Try not to make assumptions, right?
Yeah.
So
ask them.
Don't assume that male and female students will go through your course in different ways and try to tailor to them. Trust me, males and females, their behaviors are not that much delineated as some people might think. Don't ask them their age, and don't assume that some people will...
Oh, right, yeah, this assumption that those senior guys in the company, those who are 50 plus, they will not be able to deal with this course unless it's, it's as simplistic.
Yes.
Yes, so this is another assumption.
Yeah, or don't assume that, senior people will be not interested in certain things, while young people will definitely be interested in things, or that young people know anything about IT and so on. Like
that's a big misconception.
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions. So yeah, you absolutely right. You have to mind those things, but nonetheless, adapt learning to people to save their time and make it feel more personal, and they will love you, and they will give you a project, and you will work with them for years after. All right. Guess what this one is about. Also guess the movie. If you guess the movie, you'll know. I'm asking you, by the way.
You're asking me.
Yes. No one is typing.
Yeah, no one's typing. Okay, that was called Contact, or
no?
I don't remember the.
Contact was a different one.
Yeah, but that one was
Arrival.
Arrival. Yeah. I always forget which one's which. Yeah.
So this one is
yeah.
Arrival, and it's about humans of Earth meeting an unknown race from outer space and trying to establish contact with them. And this is how we got our probably biggest client to date, like a huge multinational company that we have had like a 10-year relationship now with. But I still remember, and this is one of our corporate legends of how we met them. Essentially, after that project that we described previously, we got so carried away in building that project that we forgot to sell. and there were just two of us basically in that company, and we essentially just forgot to sell. So when we finished the project, we looked around and we found out that we have no projects, and that was still kind of around the times of crisis. So selling was not that easy, and I was so desperate. I actually went to LinkedIn and started browsing e-learning groups. In English first and then in other European languages. And at some point I found somebody who said, okay, we have been dealing for years with this Asian outsourcing company. We were outsourcing our stuff to India, and we are tired because they don't do a good job, and we're looking for something like closer to home, somewhere in Europe, preferably Eastern Europe, that we could outsource to. So I went online and I read about all the problems that people encounter when outsourcing stuff to India or outsourcing in general, and I found out things like there's a culture gap, there's a communication gap, too many layers of hierarchy, not great language skills, turnaround times are longer because of time zone differences, and so on. So I wrote an email to them saying that we're located close to you. The time zone difference is essentially 1 hour. What else? We have the same culture as you, and we can prove that. Well, you have conquered Baltics a couple of times before, in the past. Yeah, so our cultures have less of a gap than you might think. We have 0 levels of hierarchy because you will be dealing with me because there's
not too many people
to deal with in this company at that point. I think we were like 5 people at that point, and they said, yeah, that actually sounds like a dream. And then they came. We were in this office, in this exact room.
Yeah, we met exactly
here. The only difference was that if you've been to our office, it's what, about 400 meters? Like we have a big office right now. At that point, that office was it, right? That was all we had. So we met with them. We actually had to hire a projector. I had to go to a rental company and
we had to buy a table.
And we had to buy a table, yeah, right. And we bought some water and a whiteboard. And we met and we discussed everything. And I think we found common ground, and we've been working with them ever since to very much mutual benefit and happiness. So I guess the takeaway from that, that's a different story. The takeaway from that is that acknowledge and understand the pain of your learners or the audience, and then strike to that pain exactly, and you will establish a way better contact, and then you can actually either sell anything, or if you're selling an idea, or if you're trying to sell them a change in behavior, or if you're trying to do them anything that you want. So understanding that pain is really important.
And usually, every learning project, has to start with some kind of analysis, right? We are told that in virtually every book you read about learning, you do the gap analysis, training needs analysis, all those kind of things. But very often in our lives, when we have to build training projects, right, we don't have a lot of time for this analysis. So I think this takeaway is very important, because it's important to find those 1, 2, 3 most important pains of your learners, and that is enough. I mean, this is that 20-80 kind of approach. If you have to take that 20-80 approach, then think about the pains.
Right, but it never actually occurred to me, it just occurred right now, that when we say training needs analysis, we think about like needs as if they are something.
They have to be able to do this and that,
It's training needs, it's not their needs, it's like needs of training. And also their needs, they seem to be objective, right? You objectively need something or need to be able to do something and so on. But if you think about like training pains analysis or learner, not TNA, not training needs analysis, but rather LPA, learning pains analysis, then you will think in more subjective terms about how your learners feel, and that might change the angle of approach, right?
Right.
But let me jump one slide back. Actually, forgot about that one. That's a different story. You can actually guess the client. It's Standards. And it's one of our earliest projects. It's actually the very first project where, it's not the first, it's the second project where we decided to use branching scenarios and simulate interactions with customers and so on. But the story was that that course consisted of 2 parts. In part 1, you had to fill out a short survey where you had to explain what city you're from, where you work, what's your work experience and stuff like that, because standards are not training their own employees, they're training their franchise network employees, so they don't know much about them, so they were surveying them. And also they had to indicate, like type out 3 most common objections that they would hear from their customers. That was course on handling objections, and we asked them, like, when your customers don't like something, what would that be? And people type things like price, I like your products, they're too pricey, or they said
too complex to use because some products were
you had like 3 products that you have to apply in certain ways, and that's stupid. And something about them
packaging,
being
quality,
natural. I think about it. It was something about that. How do I know that this is natural? Or some people would just say, and this is all chemistry. I love this one. This is all chemistry. As opposed to this is all being natural, because nature is not chemistry, of course. So they would indicate those objections, and then they would go into a course and meet those virtual clients, which would, surprise, talk about those objections. And when we saw the feedback, because they also had to email us with feedback, some of that feedback actually indicated, like more than one person, indicated that was amazing. Like, I indicated my most problematic objections, and the course dealt exactly with those objections.
But I think the exact wording of that lady, because I was reading that email, was that the course is so clever.
Right.
I wrote in the objections I mostly encounter with my clients, and it gave me exactly those situations. So the that person 12, 13 years ago, no, it's 10 years ago, was assuming some kind of artificial intelligence in that course, which of course did not exist at that point.
There was no, it wasn't even adaptive. It was just a course. The trick was that we actually interviewed quite a few people beforehand, and we knew those pains, and we catered to those pains, and we also gave people this opportunity to voice those pains, so that they would assume that the course was tailored to them. And again, no trickery, no artificial intelligence. If you're interested in AI, go to one of our previous breakfasts. It's on YouTube. But that was like as simplistic as possible, and still it worked like a charm. So again, the takeaway is that understand the pains, cater to them. Yes, please.
Yeah, and the bigger takeaway was that when we understood that approach of creating those virtual scenarios or simulations is so effective in training, that a new company was born.
Yes.
BranchTrack was born exactly out of this kind of slide.
Right. Out of those 2 findings, that one, the effectiveness of training using virtual customers is so high, everyone loves them and they really provide results. And 2, building them is really a pain in the neck, and you don't want to do that, and it's too hard and so on. So we came up with a tool which allows you to do that easily, kind of like getting the best of 2 worlds. But that's another story. A creation of another company. Right. We are now approaching the 3rd category of mythology. And does anyone remember what the category was? So we talked a little bit about what word did I use?
Creation.
Creation something.
Etiological,
right. Etiological myths about creation of things and how things came to be. We talked a little bit about psychology, myths that deal with the ways we lead our lives. Now, what was the 3rd one? Does anyone care to remember in the chat?
The name is quite complex, but you can write in something in simpler terms.
So what was the 3rd type of myths and legends?
Something about Vikings. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Guys with axes and hammers. Yeah, we'll tell you. So that was Chthonic, right? Chthonic mythology deals with afterlife, with the underworld, with the fear of death and death itself. And here's a movie about that. Great actor, mediocre movie to my, in my opinion. So I think
Constantine, right, Leonid? That was Constantine.
excellent.
Yeah.
That's Constantine, right? I think great actor gave it out. Gave it away.
Yeah, great. Okay, I know one.
So fear is a very useful emotion in training, and we use it sometimes. And in INTEA, we have a Latvian word that we use all the time, and the word is
Bība.
bība, which means
It's a state of being afraid of
or fearsome.
or fearsome rather. Yeah. So it's kind of you are stressed a little bit because you are afraid. So it's a bit of tension in there.
So it comes from an email from a customer, a bank. Again, somehow we deal with banks a lot. So a bank was doing a course, or asked us to do a course on physical security, on things that can happen physically to bankers and bank branches, like getting robbed, or arriving in the morning and finding out that the place was robbed last night. Or somebody tricking you into accepting false money, counterfeit money, and so on. All those things.
Or threats, actually.
Threats,
a very popular
right.
thing.
Yes, those common threats, unpleasant things that can happen to you. So we started doing that. We created a few mock-ups and so on. And then they said, no, we need more bība.
Yeah.
They said we need more bība in that, meaning that it has to be scarier, right? That course has to be scarier. And we tried to... There's somebody's mic.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So that course needs to be scarier, and we need to scare our people into,
Paying attention.
and not doing those things and remembering those things and so on. And we actually recreated that course in the form of like a crime movie, essentially. And this is a shot from a crime movie, a popular one. Try and guess which one. Not a common shot from that. So. It was, in darker tones. It had characters who were super serious and were threatening.
And
it had things from actual security footage.
Lock, stock, and two smoking barrels.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's Barry the Baptist, the character name.
Yeah, but that course, the most important part of the course was actually that real life footage, because we had there real life footage from an absolutely actual bank robbery.
Right.
We had real photos from, I think, branches that were robbed, burglar during night. We had photos of ATM
machines being broken,
been stolen and then broken with an axe, things like that.
We had footage of people passing counterfeit money and people accepting them.
And the footage of people entering the bank without this entrance card and then stealing a laptop and leaving the bank. So
right. Tailgating, they call it tailgating, when you enter with a card and someone just slips into the door.
Pretends to be another employee.
And so on. So all those things that you should be afraid typically in an office. And the overall tone of the story was rather dark, and it actually was very popular in the bank because it was very not just dramatic, but it was also drastically different from what you're used to, because typically your corporate learning takes on this cheerful tone. We're all here for a common goal. We're effective and we're resourceful. We need to know this and do that to sell more, to create more, and so on and so on. But that was rather a switch from that idea of we live this happy life, making money for the company and ourselves, into hey, bad things happen to good people. I think that was exactly the quote from there. And ever since, I think we keep using that word when we deal with. So for I think it was like that. For a certain time, we just used BIBA as the word to describe certain courses on certain important topics, like a lot of medical stuff that we do that deals with injury and death and pain. That we need to make it darker. Let's inject some BIBA in there.
Yeah.
But then we kind of processed it, and we understood that it's not about fear; it's about causing emotion, right? And I think the takeaway from here is that we tend to judge our learning and assess it based on two categories, on knowledge and skills. Like, does this course include all the things that they need to know? Does it have all the facts, all the knowledge that they need? Does it point them to the required knowledge? Also, does it provide them opportunity to practice? A good course provides an opportunity to practice, not just to test that knowledge, but also to develop the actual skills somehow. Does it do that? And then we stop. But what else we should do is to add this third dimension of emotion and say that courses need to provoke emotion, right?
Right.
We talk about storytelling a lot, but I think storytelling is rather a tool to provoke emotion.
Yes.
You can provoke emotions in other ways. Storytelling is great, but if a story does not provoke emotion, it's not a good story. And
Right, because we remember stories that provoke emotions. That's
Right.
why Shakespeare is known, and another guy from the same century is not known.
Yeah, right. Because he deals with things that are familiar. He describes them in ways that we can relate to, and he shapes them in such ways that the emotion actually builds up, and then there's a release, and you feel that in every play. And this is actually the art of storytelling and playwriting and script writing for e-learning as well. That is often overlooked, especially when you create stuff quickly internally. And with this mindset of, okay, it has to have all the facts,
Yeah.
we need to provide some practice, and then let's go. Then you have to stop and think, like, does it include an emotion? What kind of, I think now we even ask clients at the beginning of a project, like, what kind of emotion we want to include.
This has become almost a standard practice that for certain types of learning we ask about those emotions, or we try to understand them from the audience.
Right.
Because then you can, because what happens, and I'm not a person who has the relevant education here, but from what I understand is that our brain works in a way that at the point in time when there is this kind of strong emotions are in play, right, in the background. So you are stressed, or you are very happy, or you are very sad. So there's some kind of emotion going on. You better record that information. You better record that context, and that knowledge is you lose that knowledge much slower. Right. Remember? So if you remember some of the most emotional moments in your life, right, you will most often remember where it happened, with whom it happened. You might even remember the exact words you were saying. Whereas if it's plain, right, it will be very hard to remember.
Yeah, think back to university.
Yes.
You remember the fun professor, you remember the scary professor, you remember the annoying professor, you remember people that provoked an emotion in you. It doesn't have to be good or bad.
No, it's either or,
Yeah, or both.
Or
sometimes,
both.
Right? But this is the stuff you remember, and this is what hooks this knowledge and skills in place in people's brains. So when you are judging a course, or you're planning a course, you're thinking what needs to be included, or you're looking at the course if it's right for you or wrong, think about emotion, right? Not just the content, not just the practice opportunity, but also that aspect that is often overlooked. And fear is a great emotion to use in learning, but don't overuse that. So let's summarize the takeaways from today. And this is not a a screenshot from a
movie, but it mimics one.
Exactly. So, surveys are a great tool to approach people who are otherwise difficult to approach because they think they are too good or too busy for your learning, or you don't have a direct power over them. So send them a survey. People love surveys. At least some of them will respond. When you build learning, think about adapting it to different job roles or goals of people who take your course, but not to their age, gender, or anything else that you assume changes the way they learn. Rather, stick to the facts, like what's your job description, then this is the relevant part for you, this is less relevant part for you, and so on. And again, it's not a very hard thing to do if you think about it. Understand the pains of your learners. Again, this is linked to that. Try and understand what really bothers your learner, what they would give money for to fix in their lives, and then try to...
An example would be, sorry for interrupting, but an example would be that they're paying, let's say you ask a person, so you are going to take another work safety course. What's your biggest pain? My biggest pain, this training takes too long. Right? So those pains might be absolutely outside of the learning content itself.
Right.
They might deal with some other aspects.
It's not about, hey, I don't know where the fire extinguishers are in our office. I absolutely need to know that. Or, there are two types of fire extinguishers. This is the part that I hate about.
Which one to use when the printer burns.
So there are two types of extinguishers. One you can use on the printer because the printer is electric. The other one you can't. So when your printer catches on fire, you have to remember that. And I'm like, never happened. Like, will not happen, never happened before. We're all gonna die here. And yes, remember that learning is not just about knowledge and skills, it's also about emotion. It's something that we try to provoke in our breakfast. Hopefully not the fear, but also a little bit of fear maybe still in you. And keep in mind that there is this third dimension. As always, thank you so much for participating. We are, 15 minutes on top of the hour, so you have time for another coffee if you like.
Or you can ask us a question, or you can use that time to subscribe to our channels on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
And also YouTube, if you're looking for previous breakfast or you want to rewatch or share this one, don't forget the next breakfast. Actually, the next breakfast is next week. And 1 week from now, it will be in Latvian. It will deal with...
sales skills and how can we work with sales skills in this new normal we have right now. But the breakfast will be in Latvian because it's a little bit connected to a product we're developing right now. But in 2 weeks, we're going to have our next breakfast in English, and we will announce that. We will announce the topic, I think, beginning of the next week.
Right. And if you have suggestions for what...
That topic,
For that, no, we have the topic, don't worry.
Already, good.
Yes. But if you have suggestions for what you would like to hear or discuss or things you would like to see or dive into, don't hesitate. Please let us know. And if you liked today, let us know as well. We always appreciate the compliment. On a scale from 9 to 10, how great do you think this breakfast was? Type in chat right now and we'll say goodbye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.